Good morning and welcome to your Farm and Home Show. My name is Joanna Coles, and this morning we're visiting with Dr. Courtney Luecking. She's with the University of Kentucky, Extension Specialist there for Food and Nutrition. Well, I'm so glad you're here with us today because I think this is a really interesting topic about how we talk about food.
Yes, and so meaning well, right? Like our parents, our grandparents, any other important adults in our lives, they were trying to give us guidance about how do we eat in a way that will fuel growth and development.
Absolutely. And I think it's important, especially with young children. Like with mine, I try to introduce all kinds of different foods to their palates because I think sometimes when we do that at a young age, maybe they're more receptive to it at that time.
Yes, and to your point, kind of children are really setting their preferences for the long haul, and the words that we use can impact them. And so by labeling things as good or bad, we mean well, and yet it can actually backfire for kiddos. They might be less likely to eat those nutritious foods that we want them to eat. Or even as children age, adolescence, that's a particularly vulnerable time for development and body image. And so saying things like healthy or unhealthy or the clean eating, I always joke, like, are you eating dirty food? What's going on here? But those can really have a strong impact and be linked with disordered eating behavior. So very restrictive practices like avoiding whole food groups or very specific foods that can kind of creep down a path towards disordered eating.
What are some better ways to label food instead of good or bad?
Yeah, so I would say keep conversation about food. A lot of times we link it to health or almost like a moral view, like, oh, you're better if you eat this, and I'm looking down if you're eating that. So be very objective. What does the food look like? What color is it? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? The texture, the feel, the temperature, all of these senses. Eating is a very sensory experience. And so there's so many flavors and foods to try and explore for children and adults. And so if we keep it objective and keep those moral judgments out, we can refrain from kind of the guilt or shame that might creep in and then further contribute to cycles of disordered eating.
But we want to supply nutritious food for our children. And so, would it be better maybe to talk about the plate and the colors and the vegetables and those type of important things?
Absolutely. And we again, you are right on. Children are learning, and so we can teach them, and ways to do that is to introduce and build on concepts. So just like you said, talking about the colors on the plate, the foods, and linking that with all the wonderful things those foods do for our body. So for example, our youngest kids, we can talk about orange foods help us see in the dark. As they get older, we can start to talk about vitamin A and the different body systems that they impact. So again, still being objective about what this food does for our body.
And I think we need to take into consideration that everybody's different. So, what works and the balance that I have with the foods that I choose to eat might be different than what you choose to eat and how your body responds to that.
Absolutely. And so I think that point, and then when you're like, oh, I said it again, giving ourselves grace, right? Like we have been talking about ways culturally for a long time, and that's going to take some time for untangling and changing. And I think depending on the age of your child, you can be honest about those conversations, right? Help them see these comments about food and the relationships that we have emotionally or with our body image about those and try to help them start to see the difference in those.
Do we have resources at the University of Kentucky that can help families with these discussions?
Yes, we have some Eating Over the Rainbow resources, so they could contact their local extension office. Our agents have access to those. It's tips and tricks about introducing new foods. And there's a handout about phrases that help and hinder. So kind of it can be so slight and unintentional. And so instead of saying, eat that for me, kind of more of a question, would you like to eat that? So there are some tips and tricks for that. And we'll be having a snack club. Is this a sneak preview of kind of more resources and ongoing conversations to support families in navigating that feeding journey?
And we're right here upon farmers market season. It'd be a great time to take the kids and let them see what all is available and grown right here in their local communities. And maybe they might like to try it.
Yes, and that's the role modeling. That's the last thing. Like actions speak louder than words. So yes, having them help pick it out, taste test it along the way, pick recipes, cook with it. All the steps in between will really help contribute to eating that as well.
Thanks for watching and have a great day.